Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange on WSAN Network. My name is Scott Morganroth, along with Rick Curdy, and we welcome our Steve Baleistrieri back on the broadcast. Steve, glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, all right. Well, now that the last time we spoke with you, you were up in the New England area, so you joined me down in the South, only about 2 hours away instead of multiple hours away up I-95. All I got to do is take I-75 to get to you. So, Steve, why don't you let the audience know who you represent early?
Okay, I write for PatsFans.com, covering the New England Patriots, although I won't be there this summer for training camp because, as you said, we just moved down here, and I'm kind of enjoying the South right now, and I'm not going to go back. I don't know whether they'll be allowing people in for training camp or not this year anyway, but for this year, I'm staying down pat. And I also write for a military site. I'm an ex-Green Beret. I write for SoftRep.com. I cover military affairs and security stuff that's going on around the world. So that keeps me busy.
Yeah, you gave a lot of people an envious thing here when you told me before we went on that you're by your pool right now. Boy, I'm sure a lot of people envy you.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice. I mean, looking out at palm trees and, sitting out by the lanai, we have an in-ground swimming pool, and it's, life is pretty good right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, like I said, my wife Candy and I are looking forward to getting out to your neck of the woods to see you and your wife. So we'll obviously do that in the not-so-distant future. With that said, let's focus on the agenda at hand. Okay, and let's talk about something that we spoke about recently, and that's a legacy of Drew Brees. Do you feel it was tainted after his recent controversial comments?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Drew Brees, who's done so much for the city of New Orleans. I mean, he's been pretty much an icon since Katrina, and brought them a Super Bowl, and I mean, he's been one of the most popular people in the city of New Orleans, and that changed overnight. People burning his jersey. He was getting death threats. His wife was scared for their safety. I mean, that happened really, really quickly, and it's amazing how the perception of Drew Brees changed.
Yeah, I think so, too. I mean, think about it. The guy wins you a Super Bowl. New Orleans is never really relevant before Sean Payton and Drew Brees got there, but let's not kid ourselves. We know about the sensitivity of the issues for which he commented on, and that's been one of the headlines that's dominated over the last several weeks since the passing of George Floyd and the Derek Chauvin debacle out in Minneapolis, that's for sure. And what he did only heightened it. Rick, do you have any thoughts about the legacy of Drew Brees?
He just kept his mouth shut and kept his opinion to himself. And, he kind of volunteered that information. He probably wished he didn't, but, he apologized and stuff like that. So, what his teammates said, it's time to move on. So, as they say, the show must go on. So we'll see what happens if we do have a season, and see how the fans react toward his comments.
Yeah, when we look at Drew Brees, I know that obviously he's done a lot of good things for the community, and I know he donated a lot of money towards this whole thing. Do you think that despite the massive donation that's going to go ahead and cool things down, Steve?
I think the only thing that's going to cool things down for him is he needs to go out there and throw a bunch of touchdown passes and lead the Saints to a win. And, he's just going to have to win back the locker room. I know a lot of players kind of turned on him over this, and I get where they were coming from because they thought of his comments as being not somewhat, they thought of it as being very insensitive. But, when you heard the whole thing that he said, a lot of it got lost in the context because of how he led in with it when he talked about, his two grandfathers, one in the Army, one in the Marine Corps during World War II, and that's all anyone heard. But, and if you hear the second half of what he said, it's not just those in the military, but those throughout the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and all that's been endured by so many people. and as he said afterwards, is everything right with our country right now? No, we still have a long way to go. But I think by standing there and showing respect for the flag, and we're showing unity, and we're going to be part of the solution. When you hear that second half of it, it's not that bad. I mean, you have to respect his opinion. Now, right now, in this country, you can't have an opinion different than the prevailing attitude that's going on right now, as we all know,
right? Because
then you're labeled as a racist. But when you hear everything he said in that interview, I think it was with Yahoo. I think it was with somebody in Yahoo was talking to him about that.
Right.
When I heard when I first heard it, I had the same thought that everybody did. Oh, why did he go there? But when I heard the entire thing, to me, it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. Was it still insensitive? Probably. But at the same time, I think, he's earned the respect of the people in his city. He's done so much for that city. He's done so much for the people there. He's very, philanthropy is his middle name. That's why I think that people need to give him a little bit of a pass here.
All right, now I know one guy that spoke out initially against him was Malcolm Jenkins. And get this, okay, we both know that Malcolm Jenkins just got a job for CNN. How about that? Let's talk about Malcolm Jenkins and the fact that he gets hired for CNN.
Yeah, after he told Drew to shut the F up, right?
Exactly.
And again, I mean, Malcolm Jenkins is standing up for what he believes in, and he tells Drew, shut the F up. Now, can you imagine the backlash that would happen if Drew Brees said, hey, I'm standing by what I believe. You need to shut the F up.
Right.
Can you imagine how he'd be dragged through the mud right now?
Yeah. I guess you could say in this business, it's amazing how a position could land, in one sense, get you into trouble, but then your position lands you in another paying position, okay, as in CNN. So, and I know there's a lot of people that are speaking up. Obviously, the subject is so complex, but I and I respect Malcolm Jenkins for taking his position. I guess what I found interesting was when Brees went ahead and backtracked, Donald Trump, I know I rarely talk politics, said, why do you have to do that for? You know full well that the president is going to say, it's okay to say don't kneel for the flag because he was waiting and you don't have to do this. So do you have any comment on that? I'm not surprised that the president took the position that he took.
Well, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. And, I think somebody needs to take his phone away because, when it comes to Twitter, he's always saying something off the wall. But at the same time, I wrote something for the military site that I write for.
Right.
And it's about the black community and the distrust for the police department. And the fact of the matter is that a large segment of the black community doesn't trust the police department. And that's a huge issue. And whether you agree with it or not, I don't walk in their shoes. I don't live in their neighborhood. I can't sit there and tell them they're right or wrong. If they feel that way, it's up to the police and everyone else to change that, feeling of theirs, because that's the only way we're going to make progress and come together as a country we can't defund the police. That's not going to work. I know some cities are saying that defunding the police department is only going to cause chaos. So we can't do that. So we have to come together. And if there's a big segment of the population that doesn't trust the police department and has feelings against them, then those are the things that we need to change.
What's your position on that, Rick?
Well, I totally agree. It's just you can't have an opinion anymore. Whether that old saying of let's respect everyone's opinion, that's out the window. It doesn't. You just can't say anything anymore. It doesn't matter what you say. people are always going to misconstrue it or something like that. Brees just should have just been quiet about it, especially at this time. It was just the wrong time, wrong place to say something about the flag. And, then it started all up again with Kaepernick, and then the NFL had to come out, and I'm sure Drew Brees had a nice little visit for Roger Goodell about his comments. I'm sure Goodell was not very happy with him. You can see him struggling through that whole video about how they apologized for they were wrong about the protest in the NFL. So, I just can't say anything anymore, and Brees should have just zipped it up, but he didn't. But I think over time, people, he came out, he apologized, and I think little by little, he'll be fine. And if he throws 40 touchdowns and throws for 4,000 yards, if we have a season, I think he'll be all forgiven. So, and he apologized, and I think he realized that it was just the wrong time to say that. So that's what I think about all that.
So, Steve, what's your position of standing or kneeling for the flag? I know that standing, I still prefer that way, but I'll understand if they kneel. Do you have a position on either or, especially the kneeling part of it?
Yeah, I mean, when I was covering the Patriots up there, we got to talk with some of the players, and they felt really strongly about that. Now, personally, while I disagree with it, that's one of the things that we fought for with this country is the right to protest. And, while I'll support that, I don't really agree with it, because that's just the way I feel. I always thought, and I wrote about this a couple of years ago when this was like the hot button issue. I think, looking back at it, and of course, Monday morning quarterbacking, I thought it would have been more effective for the players, because really during the regular season, if you're watching a game on television, you don't see the national anthem. You only really see it for the big games, the playoff games, or the Super Bowl or whatever. So the vast majority of Americans don't see the national anthem. They don't see if the players are kneeling. Now, the networks were showing that after the fact. But if they want to make a statement that everyone's going to see in the country, wait till the kickoff. And then, because they're broadcasting at 105 or 405 or whatever it may be, 420, then I'll have all the players walk onto the field at midfield, hold hands, take a knee. Now you're into broadcast time, and now your message is going to get across. And, I thought that would have been more effective, because now you're cutting into broadcast time during the national anthem. That's usually, nobody really sees that unless you're actually at the game during the regular season.
That's true. So is the NFL stance on taking a knee the right one? Has a 180 degree turn made the league look bad?
Yeah, I think that it's. They should allow the players to take a knee if they want to. That's what this country's all about. And like I said, while I disagree with that to a degree, it's just, I don't feel like we should do that during the national anthem, but that's my feeling. But at the same time, I respect those, they're not disrespecting our country or, the people who defend it. They're making a political statement that, it's peaceful protest. And that's what we fought to defend. So, I'll defend that right to the death for them to do that. I just think there was a better way to get the point across, and that's just my 2 cents. I mean, like there was another Green Beret, Nate Boyer, who played briefly for the Seahawks. That he spoke with Kaepernick, and he was the one that convinced him that he should take a knee rather than sit for the national anthem. I mean, but there's a lot of other military guys that feel strongly against it. It's a personal thing.
Rick, you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I stand for the anthem too. That's just how I was raised. I just stand every time I go to a game. I just take my hat off, put my hand over my heart, and stand. And that's how I express myself. So, and I'm the same way with Steve. If someone wants to take a knee and do a peaceful protest during it, I might not agree with it, but they have a right to do that. And it's funny that the people who are so angry with Kaepernick and are so offended by what he's doing. I go to games. I'll tell you, like, I see so many people sitting down. I see so many people eating during the anthem. I see so many people texting or talking to their friends or cracking up. And I'm thinking to myself, is that more disrespectful than Kaepernick taking a knee? So I just kind of like shake my head when people get so offended because of someone doing a peaceful protest.
Amen. That boils my blood more than anything. When you go to a game and people are, like you said, don't take their hat off. They're texting or shooting the breeze or eating during the national anthem. It's like, and like you said, it's probably the people that are most offended by Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. You know, and it's just that. I mean, I've almost been thrown out of a game for saying something to some people during the national anthem because it's just, that to me is disrespectful.
I agree. That absolutely.
Taking a knee in protest to make a statement, like I said, I might not agree with the way you're doing it, but I'll defend that to the nth degree. But shooting the breeze, drinking a beer with your hat on during the national anthem, that to me is disrespect.
Yeah, well, I've softened my position on that now that people understand what a peaceful protest is, and no doubt you'll see a lot more of it this year. A lot of players have talked about it. With that said, Roger Goodell went on record that he has no problem with Colin Kaepernick being part of the NFL, would like to see a team sign him. So I think he's trying to help. He's trying to break ground on that. But Steve, do you think a team should sign Kaepernick and that he should be on an NFL team this year?
Well, the problem is he hasn't played in 4 years now. Excuse me. I think if a team thinks he can help them football-wise, then they should sign him. I think that, where he was 4 years ago, he's a lot better than a lot of these backup quarterbacks that we're seeing in the NFL, because I think there's a dearth of, quality quarterbacks in the league. And I think that, if somebody feels like he's still able to play at that level, I think he could help a team. I just don't think after 4 years, I'm not sure what you'd get. But I think somebody should take a shot if he fits their system, what they're trying to do. And at least let him go to training camp and see what he's still got in the tank.
Well, I look at it like he hadn't taken a hit in a few years either. But do you think that the media storm will create issues for a team that does sign him?
Oh, of course. I mean, because they're not going to talk to Colin Kaepernick about football wherever he goes. They're going to talk to him about everything other than football. And he'll have to go to a really strong locker room and a really strong head coach where, they'll deflect a lot of that from him and let him focus back on football. Yeah, they're not going to stop him from talking politics, but they don't want him inundated with it 24/7 at the same time. I think that's where you have to kind of strike that balance, and you don't want him being a distraction to the team either.
Some thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, for Roger Goodell's sake, I don't believe anything that man says. I mean, the only reason he came out with that video was because of the Drew Brees backlash. If it wasn't for that, he would have stayed silent on all this stuff. And for Kaepernick, they can say whatever. He can say whatever he wants about him wanting to come back. The NFL are going to do everything they can to not have the man back in the league. They're just not. They're the closest team that I think Pete Carroll came out and said he wished he signed them. Well, he wished, you can wish all you can, but they didn't sign them. And one of the reasons they didn't sign because they asked him, "Are you going to be doing a protest?" and during the anthem, and they said, "Yeah," and they said, "Okay," and they never signed him. So they're not going to take that risk with him, especially he hasn't played in 4 years, especially when he wasn't before he wasn't in the NFL. He was struggling. And yeah, there are backups there like Mike Glennon, who I mean, Kaepernick's way better than, but they're not going to put him back in the league. And Goodell, that's just something so he can tell the fans and to tell people that, yeah, I'm okay with him being there. I'm fine, but they don't want him back. And, the NFL is not run by Goodell. It's run by the owners. And a lot of the owners are old, white, rich billionaires and who are set in their ways, like Jerry Jones, and they're not going to sign him. The only team I could see him probably going to probably is Seattle or maybe Philadelphia, but he would have to be a backup. There's no way he's going to be a starting quarterback, and he's probably just going to be sitting there with a clipboard. So it's just not really worth a lot of the players' time to get a guy that hasn't played in 4 years and deal with the controversy and the criticism and things like that. So Colin Kaepernick is not going to be in the NFL anymore.
Well, just so you know, Mike Glennon is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Geno Smith is the backup for the Seahawks, and Shad Khan is a minority owner. I'm wondering myself whether or not Shad Khan would probably take a shot at him. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I just think the owners are saying, you know what, it's not worth the trouble. It's not worth people getting mad. It's not worth losing, customers or anything like that. It's just not worth it to us. He's not exactly, Kaepernick's not exactly Tom Brady or Joe Montana or anything like that. It's just not worth a lot of the players' time. It's just not worth the bad publicity they're going to get in the media, some backlash from some of the fans. Some sponsors might come out and say, yeah, you know what, I don't like him and I don't appreciate what he did, and so we're dropping you. It's just not worth it. So I don't see Colin Kaepernick coming back, no matter what Goodell says. I don't see the NFL wanting him to come back.
What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I don't see. It would have to take a head coach to really sell an owner that, this guy can help our football team, because there's so much baggage that's going to come with him. I don't see anybody really making a concerted effort to. Now, if somebody gets hurt in preseason, you might see somebody go after him. I know a lot of people were talking about New England, that, he'd be a fit up here with the Patriots. And from a football standpoint, I totally disagree with that. You look at the Patriots system, that's not Kaepernick's strength. Now, would they change things if they brought him in? That's possible, because they might change the offense a little bit with the young quarterback that they have now, Jarrett Stidham. He's more of a mobile guy than Tom Brady was, so they might be willing to change their offense a little bit. But I don't see Bill Belichick wanting any more distractions than he had last year with Antonio Brown.
Yeah, that's a good point. Antonio Brown. Bill Belichick has had a lot of problem children and turned them around. Randy Moss did quite well. Nobody knows. I think, Corey Dillon was there for a while. And how many problem child did they have? And Belichick fixed it, but I think Kaepernick may be a little bit above his patience level for sure. So, and you're right, Antonio Brown. Thanks for bringing that one up. So, with that said, Steve, how does the NFL continue to support the Black Lives Matter movement without alienating the fan base that was put off by Kaepernick's stance in the first place?
Well, I think they have to allow the players their protests. I think that they've tried to mitigate that, telling the players, stay in the locker room. I think they have to embrace it now. If the players want to take a knee, then they have to embrace it. Is it going to make some of the fan bases mad? Sure. But at the same time, I think if you handle it correctly, and I thought the Patriots, because I'm using them as an example, because, I was close to everything up there. The way they handled it, I thought they mitigated a lot of that. There was a little bit of backlash when it first happened, but guys like Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater, very respected in the community, get out, and they were very eloquent in the way they put things. And I think people, they still might not have liked it, but they dealt with it, and they could respect that. And I think that's what has to be done.
Anything you have to say about that, Rick?
Yeah, I think they just need to go out more to the community, maybe do some marches, some peaceful marches with Black Lives Matter, maybe have like a Black Lives Matter month they can dedicate, maybe like Black History Month the NFL can do, and just probably just have some, like maybe go to classes or go to schools and just talk to people about it and just kind of just be part of that, be part of it, instead of dissing themselves away. So I think that's one thing they need to do, and they're going to have to let the players protest because Goodell said that they made a mistake and he apologized. So of course you're going to have players that are going to protest. Adrian Peterson said he's going to do it. Bill O'Brien said he is, and I think recently Baker Mayfield said he's absolutely going to kneel during the anthem. So it's going to happen. Will they televise it? That's the question. Will they televise the anthem? Will they? Will they not? We don't know.
Okay. All right, with that said, because of its international appeal and because it is the most watched sport in America, does the NFL have a responsibility to educate people about Black Lives Matter? Steve?
I think they'll take a proactive approach with that. We'll probably see some of those kind of public service announcements prior to football games like we've seen in the past. I think they will take that kind of attitude with it because, as you said, Roger Goodell's come out and said, that they were wrong about the protests, so, they're going to support it. I don't know exactly where they'll go with it. I think they'll have some players maybe make a statement. I'm sure Goodell will make one. I don't think you'll see many of the owners making any statements. I just think a lot of the owners don't buy into that, and I think they'll tolerate it under the aspect of letting the team get along. But I really don't think a lot of the owners support that.
What about you, Rick? Then we'll go on to some more football questions. I know Steve probably ain't going to get to a few of those, right? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they're going to have to do some commercials. They're going to have to get people like Malcolm Jenkins and other high-profile athletes to probably do commercials. They're probably going to have to come out with a statement about how we support Black Lives Matter and just be part of the community. Doing a protest march will probably help them. See Goodell in that march would help, if that's what he wants to do. But I agree, the owners, and especially Jerry Jones, they don't like it. But, they'll tolerate it because it's all about making money. And so if they'll just, turn the blind eye to what they're doing. As long as they're making money, they're happy. So, but I can tell you the owners, a lot of them are not very, very happy with this. They wish it could just go away.
All right, now we'll go on to some football fans, and then we'll let Mr. Steve go out there and enjoy more time in his pool now that the new Florida residence has the ability to enjoy that. All right. So with that said, Steve, do you think football will start with fans or without fans?
I think it'll start on time. I don't think it will start with fans. I think they're either going to play to a totally empty stadium or a very limited amount of people in there. I know Adam Schefter said last week that they were toying with the idea of cutting preseason games from 4 down to 2. But I do think the season will start on time. I just don't think that there'll be any fans in the audience. And one of the things that I heard about, which I hope they don't do, is the piped-in crowd noise.
Oh, I don't know.
I'd rather just... I would much rather hear total silence or just wire the players up so we can hear the play call, hear the quarterback's cadence. I'd much rather hear that than fake crowd noise. I think that's awful.
Yeah, could you see fans at some point during the season, though?
Yes.
You could. Okay. Well, that's... Rick, your thoughts about that? No, we got a few more questions, and we'll let Steve go back to the pool.
I don't see an NFL season, to be quite honest. I mean, and to have fans is absolutely crazy. I mean, if they're gonna have a season, they're gonna have to play in an empty stadium. They're gonna have probably like all the food service closed down. Whether people are going to go to the games, I have no idea. I think people are still nervous about it, especially when COVID-19 is increasing in a lot of states, increasing here in North Carolina. And it's just, to me, it's just too risky to have all those players down on the field, and the head coaches, assistant coaches, medical staff. They travel a lot by plane, then they go by bus and everything. I just think it's just too risky, and I don't see an NFL season at all.
Okay, let's go on to COVID-19. The Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott, tested positive for it. I know some of the Cowboys have done it, and it's hit the Texans a little bit too, COVID-19. Is that a red flag, Steve?
Oh, yeah, it's a definite red flag, because one of the things that could really submarine a season is, we see it every year around Thanksgiving time, early December. We see it every year. A team gets ravaged by the flu, right?
Right.
Because you'll hear, the flu is making its way through, the locker room, and so-and-so didn't come because to practice today because, he had illness, right, which is the flu. Well, what happens if COVID-19 ravages a team's locker room and you get like 15 or 20 players that come up positive? Well, those guys are supposed to be quarantined, right? So now what happens to this team? Is the NFL going to make allowances for them to, bring in other guys? I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things that could submarine a season really quickly.
Well, let's take it a step further. What happens if COVID-19 hits the wide receiver room and you have 4 wide receivers? Then what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because remember, NFL rosters are made up of groups. Every position has its own coach. So all of a sudden you got all these subgroups into one big group, and you have yourself a very difficult, potentially contagious situation. And I know that's where a lot of these issues have taken place. So we've yet to see a lot of it yet, but there's a lot of anxious people wondering, okay, the other sports have had to bear the brunt of this, but the NFL or college, for that matter, both of them. And at what point, how big of a roster size do you have, knowing you're going to have more people, you lose more money, but you have to have them? I mean, we already know that you go into a training camp with 90-man rosters. Yeah, you think the owners are going to allow 90-man rosters, 75-man roster? That's when if you think they're losing money, they'll lose even more money under those circumstances. What do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, when you look at these 90-man rosters, I've been in the Patriots locker room, and during training camp, it's extremely crowded. It's crowded when there's 53 guys. But during training camp, they pack dudes in there. So I would imagine, when training camps do start, if they start on time, that they're going to be utilizing, I think, the opposing team's locker room at the facility, because I just can't see them packing 90 guys in there.
Good point. Yeah, really good point. Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what if Tom Brady gets it? What if Drew Brees gets it? What if any starting quarterback gets it, or a head coach, Sean Payton, or he tested positive for it as well? I think he's one of the first to test positive for it. What are you going to do without no quarterback? And what if the backup gets it? It doesn't take very long for this virus to spread, and someone can die from this. People, we're already at over 100,000 people have died from this. So to me, it's just too risky for the NFL to have a season. I love sports. I hate having no sports. It sucks. But at the same time, it's all about people's safety. It's all about people's health. And that's what the NFL need to focus on. And I just don't see any sports at all for 2020.
All right, we'll end it on a light note, okay? Obviously, the NFL draft did not make it to Las Vegas this year. I know they're going to give it to him, I believe, next year. But the Pro Bowl, Steve, I don't know if you had heard, will be in Las Vegas in 2021. What are your thoughts about the Pro Bowl being played at the Raiders' new stadium, Allegiant Stadium?
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the Pro Bowl. And I mean, I think it's cool that they're going to Vegas with it. But at the same time, I think that, I think that's just one of the things that kind of needs to go away. I don't think the fans really give a crap about the Pro Bowl. I know the players don't, but I don't know. It's one of those things I'm kind of ambivalent about when it comes to that. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's cool that it's going to be in Vegas, and maybe that'll drum up some interest in the game.
Well, one would have thought for the players that Hawaii wasn't a bad trip if you can get a freebie. You know how expensive it is. And then they brought it down to Miami. I actually only went to one. That's when they held it in Miami one time, and then they've taken it to Orlando. So they're trying to go ahead and move it to different places. I guess they're waiting to see which one will actually be permanent. But, yeah, you know Jerry Green, right?
No.
Of the Detroit Lions, a longtime writer, been to every Super Bowl. He used to tell me, he didn't want to be bothered with a Pro Bowl. He's one of just a couple of writers that's been to all the Super Bowls. Unbelievable accomplishment.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been in there. So, Steve, do you want to summarize everything that we've talked about today in a whole?
Well, I mean, I think, it's just sad, like I said, when it comes to Drew Brees, for somebody who's done so much for the city of New Orleans, to have all that kind of go away in an instant. And, to see people burning his jersey, him getting death threats. I mean, he's always handled himself and represented that city with total class. I've actually met him during preseason and got to talk with him just very, very briefly, but I just came away very impressed with him as a person, and I think it's sad. I mean, I really do. And it's we'll see how it all plays out for him. But in regards to Colin Kaepernick, I just don't see him being in the league unless somebody really, really, really thinks he can help their football team. I just don't see someone signing him just out of politically correctness right now. I don't think that's going to happen. And let's hope we have a football season in September.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, it's amazingly enough, Steve, I saw Drew Brees win the Super Bowl here in Miami is what I did. And it was really neat to have an opportunity to see him actually win one instead of be one of those players for whom did not get a chance. And as far as Colin Kaepernick, the word blackballed, yeah, we all know that. That's why he won that collusion case against the NFL. So, and so I hope in some respects he does. I don't know if he gets a mulligan, but I hope that he gets a second chance to go ahead and revitalize his public image because he is a fine player. Again, the Kaepernick situation is another thing altogether. Rick, what are your thoughts?
What I think is about the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl stinks. It's the worst Pro Bowl ever, and they just need to get rid of it. I think what they should do is have some fun with it and just make it like a flag football game. Because that's pretty much what it's become anyway. So that's what I would do with the Pro Bowl and with Kaepernick. He ain't coming back to the league. Drew Brees should have just kept his mouth quiet, and it's just sad that everything he's done for the league and everything he's done for the community kind of just vanished. But I think he'll get it back if we do have a season. And right now, major question marks if we're going to have an NFL season, especially when Ezekiel Elliott tested positive and other Texans as well tested positive for COVID-19. It's just a massive question mark if we have an NFL season.
Steve, speaking of Drew Brees, what are your thoughts of Jameis Winston actually becoming his backup with New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to need him, but I think Brees is still. I think he's still like a 35, 40 touchdown kind of guy. I think he's going to have a really good year this year. I'm thinking, his backup isn't going to see the field hardly at all this year because I think this whole situation probably, football-wise, will probably be a really good thing for Drew Brees. I think it's going to light a fire under him. I think he's going to go out there and play really well this year.
Yeah, as if he needed another chip on his shoulder. Boy, that certainly gave it to him. I feel bad for anybody that gets in his way. In fact, you want to talk about one of the most intriguing divisions, and you're actually being closer to it now that you're in our neck of the woods. But how about that NFC South when you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady, that you know all too well, Brees up in New Orleans, and then, of course, the Carolina Panthers have Teddy Bridgewater and Matt Ryan. It should be an interesting division to monitor for sure. So, all in all. But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. It's a topic, of course. I wonder whether or not the season's going to start on time. There's too many variables, and the more and more that these cases start to pop up with COVID-19, you kind of wonder. I mean, you're going to have a lot of nervous people. You got a lot of nervous people in NBA circles, too, that are having second thoughts. I'll use that for another broadcast. So there's a lot of nervousness to go around in the sports world for sure. So with that said, Steve, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Sure thing. And once again, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we enjoy having you, Steve. And we look forward to more broadcasts.
Yeah, you can find my writing on PatsFans.com. I still cover the Pats, but now from a little bit of a distance, at least this year. But I write for those guys, and you'll find me on there. You find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. And if you're interested in military stuff or, what's going on in the world of politics, you can find me on softrep.com.
Yeah, we're really happy, Steve, to have you as a part of our team. We really are. You're a first-class person, and I really enjoy working with you. So, as time goes on, we'll continue to bring you on as long as you want to be here because, to me, you've become not only a great colleague, but a good friend as well. Steve, Rick, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they get a hold of you, and then we'll wrap the broadcast up tonight.
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. Our email is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. We also have a fan page called Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on LinkedIn under Rick Curdy. I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And you can contact me on any of those social media sites.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll give you our list of ways to get a hold of us. You can find me on Twitter at Tribune South. That's the @ at Tribune South. Facebook, like us on the South Florida Tribune. Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. I've got a YouTube channel with South Florida Tribune. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Our email address, if you want to email us, is southfloridatribune@gmail.com. LinkedIn, you can find me under Scott Morganroth. You are listening to WSAN Network. You are listening to the Sports Exchange. We have lots of other great shows on the network. I like to list them all because they're all very good in their own way. The South Florida Tribune podcast is a non-sports related show for the locals in the area. 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We have a show dedicated strictly to baseball. The Real and the Rare with Xavier McKnight. And a great show Friday talking about Black Lives Matter. And yes, we have to do a fantasy football show, Steve, because nowadays the trends are forcing us to do that. We have another broadcast called Motorman and Rude Dog, and our brand new show is No Limits. Maybe one day, Steve, we'll have to bring you on there for No Limits and let you talk about the military. How would you like to do that one day?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely planning to bring you on that broadcast. You can find this broadcast at southfloridatribune.com or wherever you get your podcast. So with that said, I want to thank Steve for being on the broadcast again. And Rick Curdy, as usual, nice job. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, hoping that you enjoyed our tonight's edition of the Sports Exchange. Obviously, this one will be centered around Drew Brees. And you can Feel free to listen to it because we like to give you a lot of information. Chances are you'll probably have to listen to it more than once. We'll even give you the ability to download it. So everybody, please stay safe out there and during these trying times, and don't take COVID-19 for granted because you never know. A second wave can come, and if things were tough before, they're not going to get any easier. But meanwhile, everybody, on behalf of the Dynamic Trio tonight, good night, everybody, here from the Sports Exchange at the WSAN Network. Good night, everybody.